Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. It gives me an immense pleasure to welcome you all in this auspicious event entitled Padma Bridge and the Opportunities for Bangladesh Capital Market. This event is being presented to you by Green Delta Capital Limited, supported by Green Delta Insurance Company Limited and Green Delta Securities Limited. The media partners are Ekattur TV and the Business Standard. I am Nehreen Mustafa, your host of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-purpose Padma Bridge. It is a symbol of honor, pride, dignity, and most importantly, self-reliance. It shows that Bangladesh can do it and we have made it. For many years, the Padma Bridge has been dividing the southern and the northern region people for a long time with her mighty streams. The bisect having obvious influence over the lives of the southern people through their economic and social struggles, but this suffering has now come to an end by the realization of this modern wonder, this great, magnificent Padma Bridge. A bridge which is connecting the two hemispheres has now finally been constructed, and it has opened an avenue and a world of opportunities for the local people. This bridge is not only a means of transport for the people, it is also a means of opportunities for the people. And our focus of today's event is we shall discuss with our experts and get to know how this magnanimous bridge ties the benefit derived from the capital market. So without further ado, I would now like to request on stage Mr. Nasir Ahmed Chaudhry, the Chairman of Green Delta Capital Limited, Advisor and Founding Managing Director, Green Delta Insurance Limited, for the welcome note and the event brief, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope everyone is in good health and spirit. First and foremost, let me welcome you to all our today's event titled Padma Bridge and Opportunities for Bangladesh Capital Market. With the inauguration of the much anticipated 16.15 kilometer Padma Bridge for the traffic movement on 25th of June 1922. Once again, we have proved before the world that anything is possible if we have proper courage, determination, and put our mind and heart into it. Thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, whose leadership led towards exceptional growth of the country. In today's event, we have some very renowned and prestigious intellects present with us. Firstly, I'd like to welcome the Honorable Chief Guest of today's event, Dr. Moshiur Rahman, Economic Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, for gracing us with his esteemed presence. I would also like to welcome the Honorable Guest of Honor, Dr. Shamsul Alam, Minister of State, Ministry of Planning, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, and Professor Shibli Rubaiyat, Chairman, Bangladesh Security and Exchange Commission. Special guest Sheikh Muhammad Salimullah, Secretary, Financial Institutions, Ministry of Finance. And last but not least, all the stakeholders, the panel of experts, and our friends from print and media, print and electronic media present here today. Our country is one of the most inspiring and outstanding long-term demographic stories in Asia, and since we have made tremendous strides towards strengthening capital markets, obtaining the third largest position in Southeast Asia. Currently, total number of listed securities with DSC stands at 625. Central depository circuit breaker, online trading, and others have been introduced to attract both regional and global investors. The Dhaka Stock Exchange witnessed a return of over 20% in the last 2 consecutive years. The BSEC approved 22 companies, including 16 banks and non-bank financial institutions, to total bonds worth US dollar 115 billion. Meanwhile, DSC 25.1% return in 2021 was one of the best in the world. While capital market has been witnessing a negative return till July 2022, from the beginning of the year as the global economy entered into a high inflation age and other economic factors. With the aim of establishing the Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's Sunar Bangla, along with the great initiative of the Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, contribution for each of our strides will have a greater impact to achieve sustainable development goals. We sincerely hope that through constructive discussions and insights from the dignitaries and the expert present here today, we will witness a fruitful discussions on how Padma Bridge opens new doors to Bangladesh capital market and how we can capitalize the opportunities Padma Bridge presents us with through collective efforts of both public and private ventures. We believe you would have a significant and enjoyable evening here today with us. Thanks you all again for your valuable presence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Mr. Nasir Uddin Ahmed Chaudhry, the Chairman of Green Delta Capital Limited, for briefing us about the event. Ladies and gentlemen, moving forward, I would now like to request the presence of Mr. Rafiqul Islam, the Managing Director and the Chief Executive Officer, for the keynote presentation, and the presentation shall be on addressing the Padma Bridge and the opportunities for Bangladesh capital market. Ladies and gentlemen, just a small announcement to make. We shall be delivering the presentation right after 10 minutes. We will be taking a break for namaz. Those who are willing to pray, there is a place you can certainly pray. Till then, we'll be back here in 10 minutes. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your cooperation. So after the break for prayers, we are back with our presentation. And the first presentation of the event is to be given by Mr. Muhammad Rafiqul Islam, the Managing Director and the Chief Executive Officer. He shall be presenting a keynote presentation on addressing the Padma Bridge and the opportunities for Bangladesh capital market. May I request Mr. Rafiqul Islam to please kindly take the stage.
Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Moshe Rahman Sir, Economic Affairs Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, the Government Republics of the Bangladesh. Honorable Guest of Honor, Dr. Samsul Alam Sir, Minister of State, Ministry of Planning, the Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. Our special guest, Sheikh Mohammad Salimullah Sir, Secretary, Financial Division, Minister of Finance. Our guest of honor, Professor Shibli Rubayatul Islam Sir, Chairman, Bangladesh Security and Exchange Commissions. All the stakeholders from the government and the BCC and the private sector, and all distinguished guests, my friends from print and electronic media, Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening. It gives me a great pleasure to hear this evening. It is indeed my pleasure to present this keynote as keynote speaker for today's program titled Padma Bridge and Opportunities for Bangladesh Capital Market. I should say one thing in here. It's highly encouraging to see such a large turnaround given the specific time right at this moment, right after the office and the traffic, heavy traffic in Dhaka city. Your presence indeed reflects not only the relevance of this event, but also the willingness of key market players and industry experts from public and the private sector for this event. Today, I'll try my best to highlight how the Padma Multipurpose Bridge creates the opportunities for overall Bangladesh economy as well as southwestern region and opportunities for Bangladesh capital market. I'll try my best to highlight all those things. Where the Padma Bridge is not only a bridge to us as a nation, I should say. It is a symbol of pride, of our national pride and the national dignity to the global market, to show it to the global market. It shows the strength and upholding our country image and the brand reputations in the global market. The Padma Bridge, on the other hand, the Padma Bridge has created the economic impact as well as the accelerations of the economic growth. At the same time, I should say that a good capital market is an essential prerequisite for industrial and commercial development of a country like Bangladesh. So the Padma Bridge actually is showing a lot of socio-economical impact as well as the whole region in the southeast region. And it will create an impact of 27% of the populations where the purchasing power will grow and whatever the GDP projections as per this current fiscal year, like 7.5% has been projected. On top of that, the Padma Bridge will contribute 1 to 1.5% in the national economy, as well as it will reduce almost near 21% of the poverty line. And it has a huge impact on the socio-economic factors and the private sector, where we'll see a lot of private sector will have the eyes to see the potentiality to set up their business, to create a bridge between the other part of the Dhaka and the southwestern region, as well as the port, the Mongla port. It will have a lot of importance. So once the economy will grow, we'll see the private sector as well as the public sector needs a capital, where this gap of the capital, I mean the acceleration of the economic growth and the capital requirement, where the capital market can play a bigger role. We'll try to show those opportunities for in these presentations. The Bangladesh economy is actually the pre-COVID area. I would like to share you some of the thoughts in here. We had a very impressive growth, that I should say, pre-COVID sessions. I mean, before the COVID. The economy has grown like a fastest growing economy in the world, one of the fastest growing economy in the world. We have a huge market, like 170 million populations, is connected with the regional connectivity like China, India, Bangladesh, and other SAARC countries, where it can create a big market and gives the opportunities for our domestic entrepreneurs as well as the international entrepreneurs for the FDI. We have a very good young and energetic workforce. If you go into the South Asian region, we're going to see as a percentage, Bangladesh has the highest number of workforce, not the populations, among the South Asian countries, which is 45%. the young and energetic people, which can convert a human resource capital. We had an impressive growth on the FDI side. We had seen like what we had in like just 10 years back, I should say, is 2009 and 2010, less than $1 billion. We are touching right at this moment in the last fiscal year almost like $3 billion. And Bangladesh has had a lot of impressive socio-economical development, I should say, where we as a country in the South Asia leads the gender gap index. None of the countries actually doing it in here. As I said, that the pre-COVID sessions, we had a huge impact on the economy that growing very fastest way. But the COVID, it is a global problems. It is not only the Bangladesh, it is unknown, actually, the reason where the COVID has actually slowed down the global economy as well as made a lot of disruptions on the supply chain in the global market. And it has created huge stimulus package. It has actually created the stimulus package opportunity for the private sector from the government side, where it creates a hyperinflation's age. So in the pre-COVID era and during COVID era, we have seen those kind of things has been happening. Bangladesh is not out of those global issues. So we have seen those kind of things. Compared to the other developed markets and South Asian markets, we had still the tolerable level of the inflation, I should say, including the war between Russia and Ukraine, as well as the COVID, and printing the money across the globe by all the governments to survive, to give the boost in the private sector, which creates the huge purchasing power, which creates the flexibility and increase the liquidity in the market, and it's automatically create an inflation pressure, where we have an, I call it, it's like everyone, all the economists call it as an hyperinflation age right at this moment. So we are not out of that, we'll be part of that, we can't avoid it, but how we are managing it, that is an important matters for us. But so far, we have managed it very well. The government has managed it very well, which is very impressive and a positive manner for us. In regard to the foreign currency reserve, which is a very important component for macroeconomic indicators, we had a huge, the reserve has actually even given the negative trend compared to the $43 billion right now, $40 billion, but it has a lot of issues as well to have those sustainable reserve. The reserve, as per the international expert or the multilateral agency, they said like 3 and 4 months equivalent import. If the reserve we have, that's quite good enough. But still, we have a good enough because we have seen the recent statistics in the newspaper and the public information in the public domain, where we have like up to $10 billion of the earning, the remittance of the export and other. US dollar is kept in the Nostra account and in the banks, so which can be brought in by the banks itself. And we had also the devaluation of our currency. If you compare to the South Asian region, if you see that India, our neighboring country, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, all other countries, we are still having a good shape, because if we talk, we have seen our witness are something like that. We have seen some of the global fund managers, some of the global key stakeholders are saying that our inflation, our exchange rate is devalued, dollar versus taka is decreasing. But the fact is not only in Bangladesh, it's across the global market, except the one currency, that's the US dollar. So we as an emerging market, as Bangladesh is an emerging market, and some other countries like the developed countries, nobody can avoid those things because of this is an exceptionally unavoidable circumstances, not created by the government, any government in the world. It's created by some of the countries and other stuffs, and the natural things, I should say. What talks about the people, about us? That is an important matter, I should say. We have seen the growth, we have seen the facts we have, but what people are talking about us in the global market. We are in the club of $100 trillion economy. We are the 41st economy in the world. We had an impressive GDP per capita income, and also we have a good number of middle class is growing actually in the market, which is 52.4 million, which is we are the third country in the world. First is in Indonesia and the Pakistan and Bangladesh. And also we crossed like $50 billion export history earlier. So we are in the club of, after India, we are the only country in the South Asian regions within this club. I should say, What would be coming up after the Padma Bridge in the southwestern region and connecting to the other part of the country? We have seen some of the sectors will see the growth in here. Like potentially, I should say that the manufacturing and agricultural sectors, there are some of the sectors, the economics expert, the economists, they have projected and in the public domain that over almost 9% of the growth will be manufacturing, agri-processing and agricultural. The transportation sector will definitely grow, no doubt about that, in the next 5 years and the 10 years more, because the transportation is because the bridge has creating a connections is actually between that part into this part of the country. So the transportation growth, we will see that sector will grow like $500 million. We'll see that healthcare, construction and the real estate sector will grow. And we'll see the tourism definitely, that we have a very finest things in there in those parts, the Khulna and our other part of that, there will be a lot of tourism we expected the tourism sector will grow. And especially, and then also the insurance and the banking sector, definitely once the economic activity will be happening, definitely insurance and the banking sector will grow because there is a lot of people still we have, there's an unbanked people. So they will be covered within the banking sector. And definitely once the commercial vehicles and the economic activities will be starting, definitely the another sector who is mitigating the risk factor in the industry and save those industry in their bad shape, that's an insurance sector, I should say. And definitely the another one that we can see is the power and fuel. What the opportunities that we're going to have after those economic growth as well as this Padma Bridge, because our event is actually the impact and the opportunities for the Padma Bridge and its impact and the Padma Bridge and the opportunities for Bangladesh capital market. The most important that how we're going to make a co-relationships between these two segments. So I'll try to tell you all those things in here. We had the capital market, actually this is something is showing the 10 years performance. We had a very impressive growth, impressive return in the world, I should say, and that was almost like 28% growth that we had in the capital market the last year, though we have some kind of the shock during the COVID. But right after that, we had those kind of the impressive return, and also we have seen there is like equity products and the treasury bonds and the mutual funds are actually been here. What the segments on the other side, because we said that we list the gender index gap. So that is also here we have seen in our capital market, the key driving forces that we have seen is still like 25% of the women and still 75% BOI account holders are approximately is a man. We had a GDP, we have a 5 trillion takas equivalent market cap, and index is because of the recent all the global phenomena where Bangladesh can't avoid it at all. So we have seen some of the index downtrend, and also we have like 600 plus securities have been listed in the exchange. And the good part is over last 10 years, the capital market has supported the business community to provide and to create an excess of over almost like 70 billion takas worth of capital. That capital gives a huge boost to those economies. So this is a direct contribution from the capital market side, as well as it has created an impact to create the employment generations. It has helped to assist to be the part of the economic growth from the capital market point of view as an equity side. And we have seen that over last decade, like 104, almost like over 100 companies has been listed in the exchange, and we have seen that we have started the BSSC. Thanks, they have formed the regulations and the process, which is more of an, I should say, is an international level, which gives the boost and the confidence to the international community, the fund managers, and the local community as well, where we have seen the SMEs, because this is the biggest component, which the SMEs are always the engine of the whole economy, the foundation of the economy, where the SMEs can actually access the capital through this capital market, because the SME side, if there is an economic shock coming up, if they have a contractual obligations to repay it, they might have the problems, they may face it. But again, not everyone. The capital market has given a huge boost to them by introducing the small cap. We have actually the 9 bonds, almost like 9 bonds has been listed in the stock market, and almost like 8 bonds is there. So almost like 40 billion takas equivalents of bond through the listing, not as the total bond. So it has been given the support, the private sector, the banking sector, and all other sectors to access the capital from the market through the bond issuance, which is shows through the listing is 40 billion. And over the last decade, the bond market has like 700 plus billions of taka. The corporates and the banks and the institutions has been raised from the capital market over 700 billion taka over the last decade from the Bangladesh capital market, which has directly contributed in the economy. What the opportunities that we can have? Finally, I should say one thing, that if any business ventures or any private sector or any other sector wants to grow, they need few key components significantly. One, the access to infrastructure, the bridges, like the Padma Bridge that we have, that the public sector has provided. After that, what they need as a private sector or the public sector, another sector, access to capital and access to informations, access to the human resource. We have seen in the Padma Bridge, the connections of this Padma Bridge. This bridge will help to improve the socio-economic factors as well as livelihood, which means we'll have a better human resources and they will have a better access to uphold, to increase their skill set, which will eventually contribute in the economy and will be the part of the development. And the second point I should talk is actually the access to capital. We may have a infrastructure, we may have a lot of information, but if we do not have the proper capital, the private sector, I don't think so they can flourish 100%. So access to capital is an important where the capital market can play a important and significant role in here. So we have seen from the public domain is some of the corporates, Bangladesh, our local corporates, are already declaring in the public domain. They are planning and they will try to access in those sides, in the southwestern side, to develop and expand their business. Some of the names are in here, like Shelltech, Pran RFL, Nitol, Opsonin, TK Group, and East Coast. So those are the companies that are actually their names are in the public domain. They're planning to expand their business in that region. What the economic gap actually been created after this? What the funding gap has been created after coming up this Padma Bridge, the dignity and the pride for us, is actually to develop the logistics in southwestern region as well as in the overall country. The southwestern region itself required the $7 billion to improve the logistics support in the global level, which eventually give the support to the private sector to accelerate and to be the part of the economic growth of the country. So this is one of the gap that we have seen. The economists and all the expert has already been identified. Those are the gap. And the overall country is also, the other part is required the $20 billion logistics support. So if the private sector comes up to increase the logistics and wants to involve their business in a logistics sector, we can see a gap is a $7 billion. In our historically, we have seen most of the organizations or the business venture, they're always accessing the capital from the banking sector. But the banking sector has also limitations. The limitations could be like the asset liability mismatch kind of things. If it is a more longer term, the liabilities are the more shorter term contractually, and giving the like 10, 12, 15, 16 years, 18 years, 20 years loan is quite of a impossible kind of things. Is it difficult for the banking sector? Where the role can play by the banking sector? Sorry, the capital market. The capital market can play the role. This market itself can give you the instruments to mobilize the resources and access those money and use it to expand your business and to be the part of the economic growth of the country. So what are the options a private sector or even the public sector can have? predominantly we can see is through the listings or through the debt securities issuance or the sukuk. We have a finest regulations on the debt security side and the sukuk. Thanks to the Security and Exchange Commission, they have brought all these regulations in here, which can give us a huge mileage. I should say, I can remember earlier, like 5 years, 7 years back, our chief guest is in here, had an experience on the sukuk in Malaysian market. I should say thanks to the BSCC, they have brought it, because we have proudly said to the Malaysian market and the UAE market that right now we had the sukuk, because earlier we got a lot of questions. Do you have that sukuk regulations on the once we went there, how we can develop the research, because we have seen, being a merchant banker in here, we have seen the shortage of the skilled forces, where we have seen the regulators are actually trying to develop those, but we have seen we have this gap. So we went there, how we can minimize those gap, can gain some knowledge, implement in here. Then we have found, we got a lot of questions, definitely, but this is something as giving us a huge breathing space in here, I should say. So special thanks to the BSCC, the chairman is here, and the commissioner, Dr. Shamsuddin sir, is in here. So they all are actually bringing in. And the public sector can actually access the capital from the funding things from the capital market through listing the SPVs or the companies, whatever, or even issuing the debt securities. There are a lot of components for the debt securities that they can use it. There are a lot of instruments in the debt securities side, they can utilize it. And the private sector, definitely, they can list their companies, they can issue the bonds, they can issue the sukuk, they can issue even the principal protected note or high yield bond or whatever they wish, that I will show in my next slides as well. So those are the predominantly the conventional options for accessing the capital from our capital market. Especially I should say that how this infrastructure projects and the private sector can access. What are the instruments they can use? Say, for example, for the private sector, those who have the tolls base, the toll that we used to give the toll in the other market and like in the other countries. But whenever it comes in Bangladesh, we're going to see some of the things. So we should have to use to give those kind of tolls. The tolls base, like there's a future cash flow. Those future cash flow can be backed and can use for issue a bond, which can future cash flow base, like the asset-based securities, or we can say cash flow back, and or the Islamic bond, that's a sukuk. The beautiful part is the sukuk is actually everyone is the investor, but those who are Sharia compliant or wants to invest their money in the Sharia ways, they cannot do this non-Sharia kind of things. I mean the conventional one. So the sukuk is also the more wider investors pool than even the conventional, I should say. And there are some of the bonds they can think of like I should say the SDG bond or the sustainability bond, because we by 2030 that we have the goal from the government side that SDG needs to be implemented. There is $928 billion of funding requirement for up to from 2017 to 2030. Every year like $12 billion of the funding gap. How they can access this to implement the GDP, the SDG. The SDG linked bond can be issued in here. The GDP link, that since we have a very impressive growth in the GDP side, because we have seen the government, the projected is 7.5% for this current fiscal year. It means it will have on top of that the Padma Bridge will add more weight on the GDP growth. So the GDP linked bond can be issued or the sukuk can be issued because it's a variable component for the sukuk as well. And the inflation. So we talk about the inflation because we've seen that the whole world is entering into the age of hyperinflation. So we can't avoid it, to be very honest. I'm not an economist. I'm just completely a finance graduate. And inflation will be coming up because it's it's a component of so many things. So the inflation's linked bond can be also be considered. And for the private sector, I should say they can issue the corporate bonds or the sukuk. And the medium-term note, they can issue the medium-term note like 3 years, 2 years, 4 years kind of the medium-term note they can issue. And the principal protected note, those kind of the principal protected note can give a boost and give the confidence to the investors. If any default case can be happen, they will be protected because it's a principal protected. At least they will be protected by the principal. So principal protected note is one of the MTN is a PPN is a very widely famous instrument in the global market. And the MTN is also very, and the high yield securities, there might have options to go high yield securities. And also we need to create a benchmark, yield benchmark, that we do not have it actually. So we need to create a yield benchmark to improve and to give a sound bond market. And there is another one, the future revenues, what could be happen is actually the REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust. As I said, that southwestern region will see the growth and will require $7 billion to improve their logistics in a global standard. So it means the real estate sector and other sector will grow. So we can see that the distance between the Dhaka, if I can say that from Uttura to Motijil and coming from that part in Motijil is more easier than coming from Uttura to Motijil actually, I should say. So the real estate sector will have options to grow where they can feature, in the future they can issue the REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust. Again, I should like to, thanks to the BSCC for taking those initiatives to coming up, inshallah, inshallah. And the REITs can be equity format, mortgage format, or the hybrid format, it can be happen. So the new products is getting ready to give you the support to access the capital from the capital market for your need. I would like to share a structure how the capital market can help the public projects or the infrastructure projects or any projects, I should say, which has a future cash flow. So the future cash flow can be backed in a SPV, and they can issue the bond or the equity shares they can issue, and also they can issue the bond. Both the segment they can use it. Or also, if any project has a say for example $100 is a project cost of any project, that can be converted in the equity, and that can have a valuations. With that valuations, that would be actually considered as an equity of those projects. And under that, the SPVs or the companies or whatever we say, they have the liberty to access the capital, the equity, and they have the access to the debts. So the debt, once they're going to issue the debt, they can make it like Series 1. For the equity, they can use it Series A, Series B, or the multiple series, they can do that. As long as this kind of the ratios and the components are acceptable and financially viable. And at the same time, they can issue the ABS, asset-backed securities, which is cash flow kind of things. So this is an important matter. So we talk about actually a lot of the instruments or the options for the private sector or the public sector, how the capital market can play the role and can give the liberty to access the capital from this market. But at the same time, it is not 100% is a mirror bake. It's not 100% perfect. Nothing is 100% perfect. I had a telco background back in 2004, actually. We used to say the technical side cannot be 100% correct. We always have to say 99%, up to 99%. So nothing can be 100%. So in here, the capital market, yes, we talk about the bonds. We have some of the options in here that we can fine tune the audience, I think, and everyone in all the stakeholders in here, chief guest. If we diversify the investors pool, that will give a huge boost, because predominantly we have seen whenever the bonds are been issuing by the corporates or anyone, we run to the banks to subscribe it, or the financial institutions. So we thought that banks and financial institutions can actually subscribe the 100% of the bond, but we have to see it very technically and truly. They have also the limitations. They have set line of regulations, guidelines, and the ratios they have to maintain. We can't say that they will subscribe everything. Yes, predominantly they will. They are the biggest subscriber. But at the same time, if we diversify, and thanks to the government and that they brought the universal pension schemes in Bangladesh, which will give us a huge boost in the bond as a potential investors for the bonds. So the contractual savings instruments or the contractual savings component can be the biggest the bond investors, I should say. Say, for example, I can say the pension funds that we have, the gratuity funds, the provident funds, and at the same time the life funds, because these are the more longer tenor. These are more of a longer tenor. So those, the longer tenors, they can match the funding for the longer tenor of the bonds. So those kind of the diversification is most important for us. If we can diversify the investors pool, then it will give a huge boost. And at the same time, we have to remember that if we create a bond market, we have a bond market, the primary side, but at the same time, we have to see the secondary, the way the equity side, because whenever people coming in the IPO side, they have the primary market is a big, actually for us, is a fantastic things. But they all actually know they're going to have the exit in the secondary. The bond, the liquidity is an important matters. So we will have those kind of the liquidity, and the secondary, sound secondary market will be happened. Once we will see a lot of the diversification of the investors pool, where all the regulators and the stakeholders can see and come forward on that. So the diversification of the investors pool is a key component for creating a sound bond market, I should say, in a primary bond market or secondary bond market, in both the senses. What are the new products that we can see the capital market in future can contribute? We can see this like the introducing the REITs, the Real Estate Investment Trust. We can see the crowdfunding, which is equity crowdfunding, and the peer-to-peer, P2P financing. Those kind of the very popular and the famous in here, where the crowdfunding can also give the access to those people, those who doesn't have, because it's a digitally managed. It's a digital finance kind of thing. So it can give the boost to the people, those who can save it, if there is a transparency and the regulations is coming up. So the crowdfunding can be one of the factors, and commodity exchange is also been here. CSA chairman is also in here. And the debt mutual funds, we have seen the globally. I have a very personal experience to deal with the global fund managers who has actually the debt mutual fund, especially the all Europeans debt mutual fund holders. Here we have helped some of the corporates to access those debt mutual funds in here, including some of the financial institutions in here. I can see some of my GRS clients are in here as well. So the debt mutual funds can be coming up also. That can play the role in here. What actually we had? We talk about the bonds. We had a successful bond of the safe water supply, the Sukuk, the Islamic one. It subscribed almost like 8 times. We had a infrastructure-based development government primary school project. That's also been subscribed well. We have the first biggest sukuk issued by the Vaccine Co. is a 30 billion taka, 3,000 crore for setting up a renewable energy, which has been subscribed and traded very successfully in the market right at this moment, which was very good boost for us to develop a sukuk market. And at the same time that we have some of the bonds, that the renewable bonds been issued by Ashuganj power stations. What are the global market actually been happening up in here? The global, we have seen the public sector, they have developed their infrastructure from accessing the money from the capital market. Some of the examples are in here. You all know that the Golden Gate in the US, San Francisco, and then in UK, wind farm, that's also been built from the money from the capital market. And there is a gas pipeline, UAE, that's also been issued in the capital market. And the metro, Lima Metro in Peru, that's also been issued, and they access the money in the capital market, from the capital market. I would like to say in here is actually in short, like in conclusion, the prospect of Bangladesh capital market remain highly favorable as several new growth drivers are expected to provide the drive for the next stage of the development of the economy. So we can see a lot of favorable conditions and the growth components, indicators are actually favorable of the capital market. While there are some challenges we can see to our capital market, but there are also significant opportunities for the various stakeholders to take the advantage to meet the long-term funding requirement in here. Furthermore, the benefits that can be connected from this capital market, I should say, those opportunities can be amplified through greater collaborations and coordinations among all of us as stakeholders If we have these collaborations, coordinations, and all these things, then definitely we'll have a bit better opportunities and better things. And on that note, I thank you for your kind attentions and listening my keynote presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rafiqul Islam, for your presentation. That was indeed very elaborate. He rightly spoke about how prosperous this bridge has made and connecting all the socio-economic dots. Ladies and gentlemen, this event is followed by a panel discussion. And to moderate this session, I would now like to request on the stage the most esteemed and seasoned journalist of our country, Mr. Muzammal Haq, also popularly known as Babu Bhai. He's the Managing Director and Chief Editor of the Ekatru Media Limited, Ekatru Television, to please kindly come over on the stage and help us moderate the session. I would also like to request on the stage the esteemed panelist for today, Mr. Said Nasim Manzoor, Vice President, Bangladesh Association of Publicly Listed Companies, BAPLC. Also like to request Mr. Salim R.F. Hussain, Chairman, Association of Chairman, Association of Bankers, Bangladesh Limited, and he's also the Managing Director of CEO of BRAC Bank Limited. May I request Mr. Tariq Amin Bhuya, Managing Director, Dhaka Stock Exchange Limited, and Mr. Asif Ibrahim, Chairman, Chittagong Stock Exchange. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the esteemed panelist. And the stage is now to Babu Bhai.
Welcome all the panel. They are all leaders, know them all. On one introduce them initially. I hand them many credentials. I'll give few of them. Padma Bridge as a civil engineer. I'm a civil engineering wonder. Civil engineering marvel in the world. Is it working? So Padma Bridge to me as a civil engineer is a civil engineering wonder. We have an architectural wonder in Bangladesh, আমাদের সংসদ ভবন, and now we get a marble or Padma Bridge. The Padma Bridge for many towns we have created world record, creating Padma Bridge, depth of the pile, structural design, the nature of Padma River itself altogether created all records. I don't get it. The number one thing we got from Padma Bridge, nation branding. We have created a nation branding that we can do. And that nation branding can be converted our financial growth and everything. Only for the communication part, improving the communication part, the southern part of Bangladesh, with a potential of going 2.5% the local GDP, about 1.25% national GDP, poverty elevation, and other things are there. But using this nation branding hype, we can do many more. And now, organized by Green Delta Capital, they are focusing directly on the uses of Padma Bridge, a hype created by Padma Bridge, connectivity, social, physical, infrastructural, connectivity created by Padma Bridge, they want to utilize it for the capital market. So I'll not talk much, I'll talk in between, few words in between. Now I can start with from any side. So who will start? Nasim Manzoor, you will start? Okay. So let me hand over to Nasim Manzoor. He has a lot of credentials, but I only introduce him, his own, the credential given here. He's the Vice President, Bangladesh Association of Publicly Listed Companies, and many other credentials. You all know him, his family and all. So I will request him to bridge Padma, our famous Padma Bridge with the capital market.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. Respected chief guest, special guest, dignitaries, and members of the audience. Thank you to Green Delta Capital for giving me this opportunity to talk about this engineering miracle or marvel that Babu talked about. We think of the Padma Bridge in terms of impact, some which are quite obvious, trade, manufacturing, investment, some which to my mind are a little bit less obvious, connectivity and the multiplier effect. And I'd like to touch on each one of these very briefly to come to the point where how could we connect this to the capital market of Bangladesh, which we are connected with through the Bangladesh Association of Public Limited Companies, which I'm proud to represent. I think the first takeaway for us from the bridge is actually how Bangladesh can execute a prioritized, fast-tracked mega project. I think project management on this scale has probably never been done in Bangladesh. The previous record was Jamuna, and this has shown, despite many challenges and some setbacks, that Bangladesh can indeed deliver. And of course, learnings from the future, whether it is funding, whether it is engineering miracles, etc. According to an ADB estimate, the total economic, what they are measuring as the social accounting matrix. So it's not just the economic impacts, but the social impacts. And they estimate that the economic benefits would be somewhere in the region of $24.93 billion, almost $25 billion over the economic life of the bridge, which is about 31 years. So if you look at a return on investment, despite the cost escalation, it actually makes a lot of sense. We all know the statistics that was presented about the economic growth, the GDP growth, so I won't go into that. But I think the other points that we talk about is the communication and the transportation. Now, there was a very interesting figure presented in the keynote. I think the figure was $400 million worth of ferry cost saving. As we know, Bangladesh, in terms of logistics, does not fare very well. But this kind of connectivity, where it reduces the cost of transportation, not only increases our competitiveness, but also the job creation in the transport sector is in fact higher than the RMG sector or all the export sectors. So there is a multiplier effect also in terms of employment, that as you have more vehicles plying that bridge, you actually create more jobs. And the distance, as we all know, that will be reduced to Mongla Port will therefore make Mongla Port a much more attractive proposition for exporters. Now, many of the foreign investors who come here to set up factories choose Chittagong because of access to the Chittagong port, which handles 90% of our export and import volume. But that is already maxed out, and the last figure from last year was more than 2.13 million TEUs. In comparison, Mongla did only 24,000. So Mongla now, in terms of traffic time, is actually going to be closer for certain factories, even from Chittagong. So the ability to then develop Mongla and Paira creates up new opportunities. The regional connectivity part of it is also very interesting. If you look at the connectivity time from Khulna, the time is actually reduced, to Kolkata, the time is reduced by 4 hours. And as you know, that road is actually going to connect to what they're calling the Trans-Asian Highway, which will connect 21 Asian countries. The Padma Bridge rail project will also connect with the Trans-Asian Railway project. So connectivity at a regional level, internal and external, creates growth for us. Now, according to a JICA estimate, a 10% reduction in travel time between Dhaka to these southwestern districts would increase the regional GDP by 5.5% and the country GDP by 1.7%. All of this transforms into higher economic prospects for companies that work. If you look at the amount of cement and rod that was consumed by this project, All of these companies have now experienced greater growth. If you look at the connectivity to the agricultural produce that can now access the markets of Dhaka, so agricultural companies will now benefit from better prices. You will create a new breed of consumers across the bridge who will then, of course, require manufacturing. So before I end, I think the other part of it, there's a World Bank study that says about 30 million people in Bangladesh will directly benefit from the Padma Bridge. There are two other quick points I'd like to make. Healthcare. We all know that the Southwest has been deprived of healthcare for many, many years, and people have had to travel great distances with great difficulty to access healthcare. There are also large groups who are looking at setting up hospitals across the bridge now, where the government requirement is 200 beds. They're now trying to get it down to 100 beds, where healthcare will then be accessible. So you will improve quality of human capital, plus you will have new investments there. The multiplier effect is tremendous. I think the amount of cement, 5.62 lakh tons of cement. Many, many cement factories increase capacity during this time. So we see, as the numbers that were presented in the keynote, the manufacturing sector growth of 8%, construction 29%. All of this means that you will need to pour money into the logistics. And we personally believe that any investment in logistics has multiplier effects throughout the economy. So in conclusion, I would like to quote a very interesting saying that we found from the Nigerians. And they said that in the moments of crisis, the wise build bridges and the foolish build dams. So I think our timing could not have been better. We've heard about the inflationary pressures that the world is facing, but the Padma Bridge gives us an opportunity to actually monetize that bridge. Very quickly, the REIT, we congratulate BSEC for perfect timing. I think REIT could be a fantastic way to monetize that. The other one is that if you look at exchanged traded funds, ETFs also open up an opportunity where you can collateralize public infrastructure like this, because people are looking for secure investment opportunities. As we look at more volatility, these kind of instruments offer lower returns but more security. I'll stop here. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Zaid Nasim Manzoor. You have given your wonderful view on this subject. So SEC chairman is there. I was coming to chairman Chittagong Stock Exchange. But before that, I would like to say a few words on this capitalizing, mortgaging, or using this structure, whatever name stock market gave. Now you can create Padma Bridge bond, physical structure. Earlier, you remember that when World Bank went out of the project, there were many ideas came up, one funding from own project, insurance companies, general insurance and life insurance companies offered to use their unutilized fund for this project. Somebody offered to bring in a Padma Bridge bond to the market. Now I believe we can collateralize this project in whatever name and go back to international market, bring back $3 billion. This could be a huge opportunity to bridge the dollar gap, foreign currency gap in the market. Nasim Manzoor has initiated this. I think we need more brainstorming on this. Now I would request Asif Ibrahim, my younger brother. Asif Ibrahim is here. So Chairman Chittagong Stock Exchange. He is also involved with many companies, many organizations. He was the president Dhaka Chamber of Commerce. In future, we want to see him other bigger forums also. Asif Ibrahim, would you give a comment on this?
Thank you very much, Mr. Muzammal. First of all, it's very difficult to follow such an eloquent panelist, Mr. Nasim Manzoor, who really delivers very crisply, but in a very short time. But I would like to first acknowledge the chief guest, the special guests, and of course, Green Delta for organizing this very important discussion linking the Padma Bridge and the development of Bangladesh capital market. Yesterday, we were in a program where we were discussing about branding. and Bloomberg gave us a terrific presentation where they showed how they branded different countries in the region like Indonesia, like Singapore. I think for any country, a success story creates an image, a brand. And for us, I think the Padma Bridge itself, that we have been able to fund this from our own source against a lot of negativities that had surrounded it in the beginning, is the proof that as a nation, we are very resilient and we can move forward accordingly. Now, in terms of the capital market, since the new commission had come in, and also in both our exchanges we've had new boards come in, we have been trying together to promote different products so that we can vitalize the capital market. We have already seen in the presentation the importance of bonds to reduce our over-dependency from the secondary market. And of course, the Securities and Exchange Commission has given the permission to Chittagong Stock Exchange to set up the first commodities exchange in Bangladesh. We saw in the presentation that commodity market itself is a very important component. And also in Bloomberg's presentation yesterday, we could see that of all the foreign investors who want to invest in Bangladesh, 34% of them had said that commodities would be an area where they would wish to invest. Now, let's talk about this connectivity. The 21 southern districts of this country, according to different reports, this bridge will increase the net GDP of this region by about 2% and the national GDP by about 1%. For a fish trader in Borishal or Shariatpur, this bridge is a lifeline because they used to previously sell to a Noakhali kitchen market. Now they have the access to the Dhaka kitchen market. For vegetable traders, Borishal division itself actually produces 5 to 6 lakhs ton of fish. For vegetable traders also, it's tremendous opportunity for them to tap the Dhaka market. The Dhaka fish market itself is a 550 crore taka market, which will now be available to these fishermen in Borishal and Shariatpur. Also, what's going to happen? There's going to be tremendous opportunity for agro-processing in this region. We all know that this region produces a lot of fruits and vegetables. And because of the perishable nature of these items, many of these products and goods and commodities actually go into waste. We are very eager to see from different reports that both public and private listed companies like Shelltech, like Pran RFL, like Nitol Niloy, the TK Group, Envoy Group, Opsonin Pharmaceuticals, they have already expressed their interest and they are actively looking for land on the other side to make the investments. Naseem talked about healthcare and hospitals. That is also an area where the opportunities can be tapped. Bhola, the natural gas that we have there, it can be now used and tapped, and because of the accessibility to Borishal, I think that is going to open up a huge area of opportunity in Borishal itself for setting up investments and industrial parks there. These investors are looking to this area because the availability of cheap labor for agro raw materials. This is very important. And also, the government policies there that outside Dhaka, companies enjoy tax holidays. So these are also quite a lot of, I would say, investment stimulants for companies to go in and invest in our southern part of our Bangladesh. Now, in terms of the capital market, coming back particularly to the CSE Commodity Exchange, I think we would be able to attract foreign investors because of the setting up of this commodities exchange. There's going to be a huge need for modern certified warehouses where these commodities will be stored. And already many companies have shown interest for cold chain based warehousing facilities. For example, a Japanese company is called Nippon Express. They have tied up with a Bangladeshi a company which we all know, Harvest Rich, who do good item of commodities. And in collaboration with IFC, they are setting up cold chain across this region. So this is an investment which is already in process, and they have shown keen interest to work with Chittagong Stock Exchange, the Commodity Stock Exchange, to take the momentum forward. The CSE Commodity Exchange will offer standard pricing for global investors. For the first time, we'll have a future and spot exchange for commodities in the country. It will enhance market efficiency. It will give investors confidence because of the quality consciousness that will be derived from this commodities exchange. There'll be protection for counter parity default. So overall, I would say that not only from the perspective of image building, Bangladesh now, under the dynamic leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, we are looking at 2041 to be a developed economy. One of the key architects of the plan of Bangladesh, in the 8th five-year plan, they have envisaged a huge jump of private sector investment from where it is now. In order to get there, I think the capital market needs to play the most crucial role. Long-term financing, industry financing is not the role of banks, it's the role of the capital market. This is the example in the rest of the world. We have done it the other way around, and we can see the consequences now. Please, if there are any bank owners or MDs or CEOs, please don't think otherwise, because I'm talking from capital market perspective. My panelist on my left is a banker, so I would like to apologize to you, but I'm calling a spade a spade. So once again, thank you very much. I think this opens up tremendous opportunities for us going forward, and once again, I thank you all for allowing me to be a panelist in this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Asif Ibrahim. I forgot to mention that Dr. Mushir Rahman, the advisor to our Honorable Prime Minister, is here. He is involved with this Padma Bridge. He was in danger for this Padma Bridge. He should celebrate it most, because now we have crossed all hurdles and celebrating Padma Bridge. Our Deputy Planning Minister is also here, State Planning. He was involved in all the 5-year plans. So just to remind you, the visionary thinking of our Prime Minister, when Padma Bridge was planned to build, it was only a road bridge. But she immediately said, and the engineers, I know, Dr. Jamal Chaudhary and others, my direct teachers, they were struggling to find a feasible solution only for a road bridge, because the costing it was coming, it was not worth it. When Prime Minister said, I need a train rail line also, then combined with rail line and the new structural design came, you have seen the truss and the girder, concrete girder and the truss beneath that, two of them combinedly become feasible, because we get railway and a roadway. And the visionary thinking of Sheikh Hasina, many stories you know. You know that this Padma Bridge rail link has capacity to take 2 containers, one on top other. So the whole container rail line can carry 2 rows of containers, double-decker container carrying capacity, and the piling is done accordingly. And a container train, full container train, can move in 30 minutes. So we get 50 trains going and coming in 24 hours. And each of them you consider double load. Because she thought about huge growth in those 30 districts, 21 districts, and planned accordingly so that you can carry all the goods through the rail link basically. And when the rail link is ready, you will see that the pressure on the road will come down because rail will be cheaper, it will be double-decker, you carry all the products in double-deckers, which will give a tremendous boost for that part of the country to come up with new industry. So stock exchange, the capital market, people can come up with a solution as you mentioned, and visionary leaders are already gone there, market leaders, Tran has already gone there, but big players are not enough. SMEs must go there. So I'll come back to you because Bragg champion of finance, the SMEs. I would request Security Exchange Commission to work with government also how to create a special SME economic zone on that part. Actually, what if you even do nothing, industries will grow there. But if we plan fully, then expedite. We can encash the possibility of Padma Bridge faster. So I would come back to Mr. Salim R.F. Rahman, the possibilities of capital market, SME funding, crowd or share market or bond, whatever, name it.
Thank you, Muzammil Bhai. Incidentally, the surname is Hussain, not Rahman.
Sorry, R.F. Hussain.
Let me start off by greeting Dr. Mashur Rahman, Economic Affairs Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, as our chief guest today. Dr. Shamsul Alam, Minister of State, Minister of Planning, Government of the People's Republic, as guest of honor. And of course, we have other dignitaries, special guest, Mr. Sheikh Mohammed Salimullah, Secretary, Financial Institutions Division, Ministry of Finance. We have our BSEC Chairman, our very dear Dr. Shibli Rubaitullah. We also have the BSEC Commissioner, Dr. Sheikh Shamsuddin Ahmed here as well. I will not elaborate on what benefits the Padma Bridge will bring us. I think all that has been very well articulated by the preceding two panelists. But what we have noticed over the last 15 years or so in particular is that development, and there has been a lot of development in this country, has very important prerequisites, two of which are infrastructure and power, energy. I think this government has invested heavily in those two areas, and the results of which are today quite open to see for everybody, quite transparent. So in terms of what the economic benefits, the potential economic benefits of the Padma Bridge are, I do not think we need to discuss that much more. A 1% plus for the entire nation, 2% plus for that particular region, whatever it may be. What we do know there will be, and this is our own experience from previous bridges that have been built in this country, that there will be very, very significant economic benefits. Because as soon as you build connectivity to any part of Bangladesh, we have seen that automatically there is growth in economic activity. Starting from, as Muzammal Babu Bhai just said, right from the small traders, right up to the very large trade companies, which we saw in Mr. Rafiq's presentation a little while earlier. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But before I expand any further on this particular conversation, I would like to also add that aside from all that the Padma Bridge actually represents to our country, I think what it has done in a very singular manner is that it has significantly stepped up the confidence levels of our people at all levels. Obviously, the technical the engineering part, the project management part, but also the general public, people like myself or anybody else. We know that our country can do something like this with our people, with our own money. That itself is an enormous confidence booster for our country and our people. And I think this was much needed, because the kind of impetus that gives to people of Bangladesh who are by nature very resilient, but also are very entrepreneurial, I think that cannot be calculated at all. It is subjective, but I think it is also very, very important. Let me get back to the bridge itself. It's there now. We have a bridge, okay, the rail line will, I think, come into fruition over the next few months or maybe a year or so, whatever be the case. How do we exact the maximum benefits out of that? Much of it will happen normally. It is already happening, because the connectivity, as Asif and Nasim just mentioned, will automatically generate a lot of interest and a lot of business. You will have noticed that land prices in most of the southern part of our country have already increased significantly. You will have noticed that small businessmen, whom perhaps many of us do not recognize, have already said how their businesses will be benefited. Excuse me. Now it is up to the rest of us. How do we make all that happen? We saw in Mr. Rafiq's presentation, he mentioned prerequisites being infrastructure. That is there. Second, I think he mentioned access to finance/capital. That is now the job of both the capital market, but also the banking sector as well. And of course, then he mentioned two other very important items, I thought. One was human resource development, and the other was, I think, technology. I've forgotten what it was, but that too is very, very important. In terms of finance or capital, I can assure you that the banking sector, for example, is already licking its lips. The banking sector is already planning to open new branches, to enhance their staff numbers, roll out new products, new services, because this is a huge, roughly 3 crore people, a population that are relatively speaking unbanked compared to many other parts of our country. This affords us an opportunity to find a new client segment in a new geography, and in fact, multiple client segments. So I assure you that the banking community is going to invest heavily in all those areas, in its capacity and actually the capabilities. How do we find out new customers here? How do we serve them? And of course, when we talk about customers, ladies and gentlemen, there are many segments of customers. Mozammel Bhai started off by referring to small and medium customers. We call them cottage, micro, small and medium, CMSMEs. We start there, and you can go right up to the Prans and the Akijes and whoever else, the very larger ones. The fact is, the smaller segment is just as, if not more important than the larger ones. And that is where really the banks are going, especially banks like ourselves, are going to be investing very, very heavily. I can assure you that we have already started. We actually started surveying the area, the requirements of customers quite some time earlier, and we are now well prepared to roll out different capabilities across that region, both physical in terms of branches, sub-branches, agent banking outlets, etc., but also digital capabilities. So, banking apps, payment capabilities, etc., 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 all of which are now going to be targeted at a, relatively speaking, unbanked client segment. As far as SMEs are concerned, I can tell you that in just 1 month alone, BRAC Bank, which is a bank with about 53% of its loan portfolio invested in cottage, micro, small and medium customers, we have already seen a spurt in business in that area. And we are working double time to invest more in terms of building our capacity in that area. More branches, more sub-branches, more agent banking locations, more resources to invest in those areas. Relationship managers, risk managers, branch managers, service managers, etc., etc. The opportunities are significant and we want to tap into it quickly. I will stop here and pass on to the next panelist. But before I do, may I mention to our dear friend Asif and Dr. Shamsuddin and Shibli Bhai here as well, that the reason that the banking sector has been forced to get into long-term lending in this country is not because they wanted to. It was a necessity. It was also born out of the fact that the capital markets were not able to step up to the mark. One hopes that going forward, that will change, and under Dr. Rubaitullah's very able leadership, the entire capital market industry, as we saw from Mr. Vick's presentation, will take advantage of this opportunity and really start investing, helping out the industrialization of this area through bonds and sukuks and whatever not. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
I hope I'll not make any mistake. So we have a last speaker here. In between, if you want, any one of you have any thing to say to make it more vibrant, fine. So our last speaker is Mr. Tariq Amin Bhuiya. He is the right man. He is the managing director of Dhaka Stock Exchange. Actually, general people don't want to get into the debate of capital market versus bank. We can do it some other day. But what I understand, capital market should do something to enhance people's confidence. Some of them lost their confidence totally at one point. Now under the able leadership of and my younger brother, another commissioner, Samsuddin, we understand that you are trying to build back the confidence, but you should try some fixed return products so that there is not much speculation on that to bring back the confidence. Let people have some fixed return product and be happy, no speculation, no 10 taka thing selling at 100 taka, then 1 taka. Let them try some fixed return bond. I don't know how it's possible. This is not my subject. Anyway, I'm going back to Tariq Amin Bhuiya, Managing Director, Dhaka Stock. So last today.
Thank you. I have taken notes for your interest to put in more bonds. We are actually working on that. There are more bonds coming into the market. Historically, Dhaka Stock Exchange dealt with only with stocks mostly. We have recently introduced bonds, and by the end of third quarter, we will also be introducing ETFs, exchange traded funds, and REITs. So we are working on that. So talking and connecting it with the Padma Bridge, I will go back in time a bit. Civilizations and communities always grew first on the both sides of a riverbank. Okay, so that is history. That has always happened. Okay, so people used boats and everything, and then it moved on to an automatic river vessels, and then bridge came into existence, the capital infrastructure. So for that, the Padma Bridge, or any bridge for that matter, is actually contributing to the socio-economic development of any country, starting with the communities on both sides, and the cities on both sides, and the whole country. So that is a given. So we have one thing that we have just found out, that we can link Padma Bridge to something called ESG, economic and social governance, okay? Especially to E and S. We had a nation branding program yesterday where we came to know that about the data, and this data actually talks, where we came to know that out of every 10 FDIs that a country receives, 6 are linked to ESGs. And there is another study where 300 among the 300 asset managers, that represents $14 trillion of assets under management. When they were taken a study, they said that 56% of them are very much interested to invest in thematic bonds or thematic vehicles. So what are these thematic vehicles? These are anything that is linked to ESG, education, those sort of areas. So we have something here that we can easily link to ESG. So what we can do with this? So now the second data point for me is that we all know even the worst study that says that by 2030 Bangladesh will be the 28th largest economy in the world, and that is the worst number. So some say it will be 24th, some say it will be 25th. But even the worst is 28th. And that is based on numbers, that is based on our growth. So by 2030, Bangladesh will be a $760 billion economy. So currently it's around 380, so twice. So we have 8 years to double the GDP size in 8 years. But our stock market, Dhaka and Chittagong combined, we are like 70, up and down. So from 70 billion, we have to take it to 760 billion, because if we are 100% of the economy, and normally the capital market can be easily 100% of economy, that's quite normal. So, but we are currently only less than 20%, and if it so happens that our economic growth is actually faster than our stock market growth. So we are never catching up 20%. So we need to catch up. We need to put more products. And we now have something here that we can actually capitalize on. And we have here our Honorable Economic Affairs Advisor to the Prime Minister. We have the Planning, State Minister for Planning. We have the BISEC Chairman. So my takeaway from you would be we to grow to that like 100% of GDP, to take our stock markets to 100% of GDP, to 760 billion, we need minimum 30% of foreign investments, minimum. Because locally, we know we can do a lot more, and we will do that, and we are very confident that we can do that, but the remaining 30% has to come from foreign investments. But the foreigners are not coming. There is one critical factor why the foreigners are not coming, and that is we don't have any sovereign bond. Because foreigners, when the foreign investment companies, when they want to bring in their funds, they want to get some like a benchmark. So what is the benchmark to invest in Bangladesh? So we now have a fantastic vehicle which can be linked to ESG, and my request to the senior members here, that why can't we think about a sovereign bond? So obviously it will not be listed with us because sovereign bonds has to be listed overseas. But we are more than happy to, whatever remaining is there, we are more than happy to list it here, either as bonds or as REITs, or there are many other ways we can do that. And with that, I would like to finish my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Tariq Amin Bhuiya. If we conclude like this, Padma Bridge, number one, has created a huge nation branding which we can utilize for many things, including financing, capital, and other markets. Number one. Number two, the possibilities of big and small industries in the southern part of Bangladesh with the link of Padma Bridge is going to be another big growth engine for Bangladesh with 2 ports. My anticipation is that southern part will grow faster than other part of Bangladesh with 2 ports, with Bhola gas reserve and Paira 2, 3, 4 coal-based power plants. It will go faster than rest of our country, but that will have a huge finance requirement with both banks, capital market, with newer products, bonds. They must be present at the doorstep of people so that we can expedite the growth, the investment can be justified. And I fully support the idea of taking back Padma sovereign bond to international market. As an engineer, whether I should say it or not, I don't know. It has a potential to bring 3, 4, 5 billion to Bangladesh because it has a fixed return. If somebody goes to the toll plaza, they will immediately know what will be the daily income, not even monthly. Hourly income they can calculate. If you future project that, I think we can bring back $5 billion. And the bankers and capital markets should target the capacity of the train lines, huge capacity of the train lines. We can carry goods, forget the road line. And it is also a triple purpose bridge. It has a water link also. We could build it much cheaper if you could forego the water link. We had to build a higher bridge and we had to take care of the turbulence created by the waterways and the piling, and piers had to be designed accordingly so you can utilize the waterway also. And you have seen that there is a yellow pipeline, there's the gas pipeline. This is the 4th parameter of this bridge. I don't know. You can listen. So you can utilize the gas pipeline to in future to get the gas or take back the gas for the industries in this area. And these under construction is the high voltage electricity line, which can bring back electricity from Paira and take back electricity if possible. So considering everything, we should try our best to capitalize this branding, capitalize this value, capitalize these opportunities, 2 ports, virgin area, everything. I think our experts from capital and banking and other sectors will do the best for it. At last, I want to give tribute to my uncle, Nasir Chaudhry. 35 years ago, when I came up with a newspaper, when I was a 3rd-year student of engineering university, somehow it became the highest circulated newspaper. So I went to Nasir Chaudhry, Safai Chaudhry. They helped, and I should say they financed my project. Every week they used to finance my gap from circulation and whatever the requirement. I'll never forget it, Nasir Chacha. And I find him stronger than me, younger than me now. Thank you very much. Look forward to good opportunities through this bridge. And we're looking forward to more able leadership from Dr. Mushir Rahman, Samsul Alam, Ubaid Shibli, and all other policymakers here present. Thank you very much. Jai Bangla, Jai Bangabandhu.
Thank you so very much to the moderator and also to the panelists for such bolstering and resourceful discussion regarding our main focus topic of today, which is the Padma Bridge and the opportunities of the capital market. Thank you for giving us the insight and in-depth knowledge how the dots are connected and also the roadmap for the capital market to evolve and grow into the major supporting pillar for the southwestern and the national economy as well. So once again, thank you so much for sparing us time from your busy schedule and gracing this event. To make it more memorable, we would like to present a token of appreciation from this event, and to do the honor, I would like to request on stage Mr. Nasiruddin Ahmed Chaudhry, the Chairman of Green Delta Capital Limited, Advisor and Founding Managing Director, Green Delta Insurance Limited. And to accompany him, I would also like to call his worthy daughter, Ms. Farzana Chaudhry, MD and CEO of Green Delta Insurance Company Limited, Mr. Muhammad Rafiqul Islam, the MD and CEO of Green Delta Capital Limited. At this moment, we'll take this opportunity to hand over a token of appreciation to all the panelists and the moderator for beautifully handling the session. May I request once again on the stage Mr. Mozammel Haq, the MD and Chief Editor of Ekattur Media Limited, Ekattur Television, to receive the token of appreciation from Mr. Nasir, sir. The next memento is to be given to Mr. Said Nasim Manzoor, the Vice President, Bangladesh Association of Publicly Listed Companies, BAPLC. May I request on stage Mr. Salim R. Hussain, the Chairman, Association of Bankers Bangladesh Limited, and the Managing Director and CEO of BRAC Bank Limited. Please welcome Mr. Tariq Amin Bhuiya, the Managing Director of Dhaka Stock Exchange Limited. Requesting on stage Mr. Asif Ibrahim, Chairman, Chittagong Stock Exchange. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Nasir, sir. Thank you, Afan. We are moving on to our next session. We have some esteemed guests over here, and we would like to hear their valuable insights regarding today's topic. And to start with, it is an honor to call on stage Professor Shibli Rubaitul Islam, the Honorable Chairman, Bangladesh Security and Exchange Commission, to deliver his insight, please.
Assalamu alaikum and very good evening. My very, very respected Honorable Chief Guest today, Dr. Mushur Rahman, Economic Affairs Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, and a person whom I respect so much, not because that he's a very efficient man and played a great role while he was performing his duty in every aspect of his life, but also I feel so sad that he had to go through so much of humiliation just because of this Padma Bridge. So salute to you for helping us coming through this obstacle. Honorable guest of honor, Dr. Samsul Alam, Minister of State, Ministry of Planning, who is a great person having huge farsightedness ability. The vision, the plans that he has formulated during last 13 years is actually either implemented or under implementation process, or will be implementing. And everything is happening as per his given direction. And that's why this country, as we saw earlier today and yesterday through Bloomberg presentation, that this gentleman knows where this country is, where this country was, and where this country should go to achieve the ultimate goal of the father of the nation. My very respected Sheikh Muhammad Salimullah, Honorable Secretary, a very dynamic, sincere, and dedicated person whom I know from my Department of Finance for so many years, is the right choice by the Honorable Prime Minister and is performing his duty with due diligence, and we are working as a team very, very happily and comfortably. 120 years before, when the British came and took over Hong Kong, they started doing a lot of things in Hong Kong. The problem was the land area, and they couldn't expand much. When they started talking to the Chinese authority that we need more land because that leased land is not enough and adequate, then the problem was the Chinese found that Hong Kong is really good for their economy, but the problem is they want more British business, but the problem is if they give them a part of Kowloon area that needs somewhere to have a connectivity. When the bridge and the tunnels came up, the business in Hong Kong, the economy of Hong Kong started booming. And that ended up with adding another territory called as New Territory. So this is how the Hong Kong Kowloon New Territory has brought China to this level now. It was a closed economy, and Hong Kong played main role for development of China and come to this place. This is an example how a bridge and connectivity can play a great role in how China has become an economic power today. I really want to thank Green Delta Capital for their prudent and well-timed effort in arranging this event with a vision to peek into all the potential and possibilities that Padma Bridge brings to the table, and how we can make the most of these opportunities to develop and grow our nation to reach its full potential. But the issue is, bridge. So I was reading a poem one day, and I was trying to find what it means, what is bridge during the past, and found that Shel Silverstein, a very renowned poet from the Western world, wrote a poem, and the name is The Bridge. The bridge will only take you halfway there, to those mysterious lands you long to see, through gypsy camps and swelling Arab fairs and moonlit woods where unicorn run free. But this bridge will only take you halfway there. The last few steps you'll have to take alone. Bridge has taken us halfway. Bridge is done. Everything is okay. The rail line is coming. But what we want and what the country should achieve through this bridge is actually not done. So now is the time that we have to start working and take advantage out of this bridge. So now what should we do? I thank the keynote presenter today. He has raised all the good points, and he has rightfully pointed out that how we all should work together under dynamic leadership of our ministry and achieve all the goals that we dream of. It's not only capital market, the money market and other participants of our economy should work together. The keynote speaker rightfully pointed out about the manufacturing industry. Now, the land price, as said by the panelists, has increased a lot because of the demand. As said by the managing director of DSC, every city during the past thousands of years we saw grew by the bank of the river. The interesting thing is this part of our country, which is almost 1/4 of our country in terms of population, around 3 crore, was out of our reach and was difficult to commute. But now, just because all these people will come to the connectivity with the mainland, now many things are happening there. In our capital market, recently, we saw 3 industries who are actually now in the OTC market because they are closed. 20, 30 years they are not performing, not working. Owners are lost. And interestingly, 2 Chinese investors came. They said, we want to take these 2 companies. I was asking, why do you want to take these companies? It's a closed company. They said, this company, that is actually a fish-related business, export of fish. They said, we want to buy 3 vessels. We want to use, again I thank Dr. Samsul because he's one of the pioneers who is helping in developing the blue economy and planning accordingly to have outcome from the blue economy that we recently got. So they want to use 3 vessels in the Bay of Bengal, use the blue economy that we have, one for the local market fisheries industry. Second is salmon fish. They will try to do something they have a plan to do here in the Bay of Bengal. And another one is to have crab and shrimp business. So these 3 things they want to do in Khulna, and they want a ready-made company which has an IPO but closed. So this is how the closed and companies with people money stuck are again restarting in that part of the world. Another one is a jute company. So this is how the economy of that part of Bangladesh is reviving. Manufacturing industries are growing. Today, IFAD Group came to see me, and I was talking to them about their business, transportation business. And they're willing to raise some fund through bonds. So when I asked what will be the ultimate use of this fund, he said, my ultimate use of this fund will be, I need around 2,000 buses within next 1-2 years in order to supply to the southern part of this country. So this is how the demand is coming up in transportation industry. Agri industry is almost the same. Because agricultural lands, agriculture outputs, they will be very fast distributing their products around the country now because the commuting time has gone down. Healthcare and other business that our keynote speaker presented and said is totally true and right. Those industries will also grow. And energy, in the Bhola part, we have our gas. But now the gas will come to the mainland, but many industries are growing in that part of Bangladesh because of availability of energy. Banking, insurance, as said by Selim Bhai, is totally true. And that will also generate employment. One day, one economist was saying that, what should you do to develop your country? They said, we have to do 3 things. And when he was asked, which 3 things? They said, generation of employment, employment generation, and employment. That means if you generate employment, it will do everything automatically. It will increase the purchasing power, it will reduce the dependency on others, and automatically the disposable income and other spendings will start making our economy moving faster. And then you will have more tax, more money to develop your country, and altogether the money cycle will move very fast. And that's how your country will automatically grow. So employment generation is one of the very important job that we have in hand, and that's where I'm sure our planning state minister is working on. So how do capital market help here? The keynote speaker rightfully said that you have to have equity and bond, different instruments. And I'm very happy to say that our commissioner is here, our team is here. They're working hard. And whatever our keynote speaker said, we have those bonds already in the table. I hope the Chittagong Stock Exchange by next month will start initiating their commodity exchange, which will have huge impact in developing infrastructure in every corner of the country. Our Dhaka Stock Exchange will start REIT and ATB board, everything within next 3 to 6 months. And different bonds, as he said, are already on the verge of coming. So we have already taken necessary steps, everything is happening, and we hope that capital market will be providing long-term financing solution to the whole country, and especially because of the thrust to the southern part of the country now. As probably the chairman of Chittagong Stock Exchange was saying, that long-term financing issue, yes, Salim Bhai said rightfully that we have to take a lot of responsibility in order to provide the solution for long-term financing now. But the main thing is we have to have enough policy support at this moment in order to implement all this. If you have an exposure limit while trading bonds or buying, selling bonds, then how you will circulate those bonds? Bonds are the nerve of an economy to take the economy forward. So I'm thankful to the Honorable Governor, Honorable Secretary and others that they're trying to resolve this issue very soon, and hopefully this main problem will be over and everyone will be able to contribute and invest in the bonds. And my very respected Mojammel Bhai was asking for fixed income return. Bonds, mutual funds, they're giving fixed income returns, and you can sleep at home, and they're giving very good fixed returns nowadays, so you have a place to invest now. The keynote speaker also talked about other instruments that we are now planning to implement, especially the green bond, blue bond, where our planning ministry is also working. And also we are working on the crowdfunding, debt mutual funds, and there are new other things that we are formulating our law, rules and regulations and everything, so that we can bring new things for you in the coming days. It's my firm belief that with the right direction and insight, Bangladesh capital market can meet the challenges ahead and become a major contributor as a reliable and sustainable source of capital. Just as the Padma Bridge is connecting our regional economies and revolutionizing the accessibility across the country, our capital market can become the bridge that provides access not only to capital from the domestic market, but international market as well, and connect them to the ventures of our future and help us build the prosperous Bangladesh that the father of our nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, has dreamt of. And that is happening under the dynamic leadership of a daughter, our Honorable Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina. So we are now ready. We're ready to provide all the solutions from the capital market. Our office is trying to give you the fastest possible service nowadays. We are there for you, and if you need any type of long-term financing solution, the Finance Ministry and BISEC, we're ready to help you. I thank Green Delta Capital for inviting us today, and we are feeling really honored and privileged. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable insight. And I think the entire room appreciates the mantra which has been shared by one of the economists to you. That is the employment of generation, generation of employment and employment. It certainly will take the country forward. I would now like to request our special guest of the event, Mr. Sheikh Muhammad Salimullah, the Secretary, Financial Institution Division, Minister of Finance, to kindly come forward and deliver your speech.
Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Mushur Rahman, Economic Affairs Division, Affairs Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. Honorable Guest of Honor, Dr. Shamsul Alam, Minister of State, Minister of Planning, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. Chairman of the BSSC, Professor Shibli Rubayat, and stakeholders from government and private sector, the panel of experts, distinguished guests, and my friends from print and electronic media, and ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. I feel honored to be here. This is because of the presence of the two most respected personalities who are the authority of their lines and have checkered life with their own. Dr. Shamsul Alam, Honorable State Minister, Minister of Planning, has been working in different capacities in planning area to make the country a developed one. He is one of the main architects of planning documents for making Sonar Bangla in reality under the great leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Another personality, Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Mushur Rahman, Executive Economic Affairs Advisor to the Prime Minister. Needless to say that he is one of the main planners of the Padma Bridge project to make it in reality with our own fund. It is our national pride that finally we have inaugurated the Padma Bridge, the most awaited infrastructure project of Bangladesh. This is the symbol of economic stability and strength of Bangladesh. Now Bangladesh is proving its capacity to be a nation with sustainable growth, a rising star Bangladesh, one of the most emerging economy in the world. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Green Delta Capital Limited for arranging such an important and timely event on Padma Bridge and opportunities for Bangladesh capital market. Nobel laureate Kavi Guru Rabindranath Thakur said, "Amra ja boli ta kori na, ja kori ta bishwash kori na." We, however, prove that we do whatever we believe in and do what we say. We are on the way to be a developed nation by 2041. We have already graduated from a developing country to lower middle income country. Our per capita income is now $2,824 US. Our life expectancy at birth is about 73 years. Our poverty rate is below 20.5%. We have achieved positive growth even during global pandemic situation. We are committed to achieve the sustainable goals by 2030. We have planning documents in our hand. We have Perspective Plan 2021 to 2041. We have Delta Plan 2100. We have 8 5-year plan. We have SDGs, but we need implementation those plans with due care. We have ample opportunities to achieve the targets of those plans and make the dream true. We are envisioning to become the 24th largest economy in the world by 2030 and to become a developed country by 2041. To reach the goal, we are bestowing the emphasis on substantial economic growth. To utilize the full potential of Padma Bridge, we need to have more investment and trade opportunities. Apart from foreign investment, we also need to utilize our money and capital market. We should have fund flows in southern region. Without proper diversified investments, we will not be able to see the expected economic growth. We know that we are enjoying the demographic dividend, that is, we have huge working population. We will continue to give us benefits in next 20 to 30 years. We need to transform that population group into human capital. This is one of our most important opportunities for us. We have to increase our per capita income more than $13,000 to improve our socio-economic condition to be a developed country by 2041. To achieve this goal, no doubt, we need huge investment. We need to accelerate export, improve education, health, life standard, and so on. Padma Bridge is another opportunity. I must say, it will become a catalyst in our development. It will not only make our connectivity easier, but also to open the door of development for about 3 crore people of 21 southwestern districts of Bangladesh. The construction of Padma Bridge will improve the integrated communication strength of the country. The Padma Bridge is estimated to increase the GDP of the country by more than 1%. It will impact about 27% of Bangladesh population to boost business and agriculture, thereby impact the country's GDP. With this massive infrastructure, the Padma Bridge will bring the real business activities in this southwestern region where private sector can access long-term capital from capital market by issuing debt securities, issuing new shares. I would also like to mention that infrastructure development capital that have strong socio-economic benefits through development of essential utilities such as roads, water and housing, energy, telecommunications, public transport, etc. These projects are ideal for financing through the capital markets via long-term bonds and asset-backed securities. The capital market of Bangladesh can play a bigger role to channeling the funds to the southern region of Bangladesh. To get the full development implication from the Padma Bridge, the need of sufficient fund is evident. Efficient capital market can be effective to mobilize domestic funds, complementing conventional bank lending by supporting long-term investment. Additionally, capital markets can lessen a country's reliance on foreign debt. Recently, Bangladesh Bank signed the MOU with Bangladesh Securities and Exchange Commission to commence trading of treasury bonds in the capital market. I believe our capital market regulator, that is BSEC, brought so many positive regulatory changes that will enable the business to access capital for economic growth. As we have built Padma Bridge, by our own fund, I am firmly convinced that by properly pursuing investment and economic activity, we would be able to realize our full potential. By bolstering our effort, we can reach to our goal of being a developed country by 2041, where capital market can play a significant role. Thank you. Thank you for patient hearing. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu.
Thank you very much, sir, for your insight. Our next guest of honor is Dr. Samsul Alam, the Honorable Minister of State, Minister of Planning, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. I request Dr. Samsul Alam to kindly grace the stage and share your insights.
Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Mashiur Rahman, Economic Affairs Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, Special Guest, Sheikh Muhammad Salimullah, Secretary, Financial Institution Divisions, Minister of Finance. Guest of Honor, Professor Shibli Rubayatul Islam, Chairman, Bangladesh Security and Exchange Commission, all the stakeholders from government and the private sector, the panel of experts, all the distinguished guests, my friends from print and electronic media, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening. Thanks for inviting me as a chief guest, as a guest of honor for today's program titled Padma Bridge and Opportunities for Bangladesh Capital Market. I'd like to thank the organizer of today's program, Green Delta Capital, and its Managing Director and CEO, Mr. Rafiqul Islam, for choosing such an auspicious, time-worthy topic. And the paper was very insightful, and I think, and very many suggestions he put forward to flourish our bond market. Green Delta Capital Limited, being a leading merchant bank of the country, they have made some tremendous mark while winning many international awards. Notably, last year they won ICT's Innovation Award for the discovery of wealth management product, and I also heard they have been awarded by Asia Money Award, Bangladesh's best investment bank of ESG 2022. Today, all have been present here, sharing and hearing the opportunities created by the Padma Multipurpose bridges and how the capital market can play a role to fill up the long-term funding gap for both public and private sector in overall economy, as well as the opportunities created in the southwestern region connecting the whole country. Dear all, I believe the capital market today is a reality met in any modern economy. Sound money market and capital market are an indispensable part of the economy. The activity of bond market in Bangladesh is limited and yet to grow. The capital market of Bangladesh is one of the frontier markets in the context of the global financial system. The market has immense potentials for countries' industrialization, development of infrastructure, and economic growth in general. The bond market is coming up. The capital market in Bangladesh is mostly dominated by equity securities or stocks or equities. At present, the total number of listed securities is 625. From 350 companies in the Dhaka Stock Exchange, whereas only 9 number of bonds are traded in exchange and few more perpetual bonds are in the pipeline to be listed soon. The potentiality of the bond market to meet the long-term funding requirement. The capital market of our country is holding a horizon of possibilities considering our economic activities and future prospect. Capital markets, fixed income instruments such as bond and sukuk can help mobilize funds to finance the big infrastructure, business houses to reach the full potential of the Padma Bridge we said so much. I'm very happy to say the situation is getting better as time passes with the proactive and collaborative approach of regulators and related stakeholders. Very recently, the country's first Sharia-compliant bond, the Bangladesh Government Islamic Investment, what we call Sukuk, has drawn over 8 times applications from investors in the final phase of auction. That tells how much potential is there for bond market in our country. The fund was raised for the implementation of the government's safe water supply project for the whole country. The oversubscription clearly shows the interest and curiosity of the stakeholders towards this new financial instrument. Not only that, Bangladesh capital market has also entered into the era of green bond in 2021 with the approval of its first green bond to finance environment-friendly projects, including renewables. Bangladesh Securities and Exchange Commission has approved a non-government organization named Sajida Foundation to raise money from the capital market by issuing green bonds. And Beximco's Green Sukuk Al Istisnas, the first ever Sukuk from the country's private sector, issue size of Bangladesh taka 30 billion. Opportunities of debt markets, especially the bond market for the development of our economy. What opportunities are there? Like emerging market countries around the world, Bangladesh could benefit from having a local currency, fixed income security, and market, especially a sound bond market. Banks and financial institutions have limited funds to project long-term as their asset liabilities. So bond market can play a significant role to meet long-term funding requirement for both private and public sector. Looking into Bangladesh bond market, we can see that it is a small market yet, and it is highly dominated by government debt securities and mostly capital bonds issued by banks and non-bank financial institutions to meet their capital base requirement, which are mostly perpetual and Tier 2 bonds. Banks have limitation to provide longer-term finance as banks are depending on short-term deposits mostly. So if we can have a proper bond market with diversified investors pool, that will bring more better benefits to the private sector. We talked about bond market. To have it flourished, we stated in our 6th five-year plan, we emphasized in our 7th five-year plan. Again, we re-emphasized flourishing of bond market in our 8th five-year plan. Structuring of bonds with flexible repayment and stronger recourse mechanisms compared to the economies in other neighboring countries, it is essential that financial market of Bangladesh also structures innovative bond transactions through matching bonds cash flows with issuers' requirements. There is still an untapped market for bonds like municipal bond, green bond, more sukuk, Islamic bonds, etc. Can be offered. Involvement of all relevant stakeholders may look into this for the development of this emerging bond market. The challenges and probably the way out. Diversification investors base. Banks and financial institutions are still predominantly the main investor of the bond issuances in Bangladesh. In mature bond markets, the investor base for bond markets is generally well diversified with banks, mutual funds, contractual savings institutions such as pension funds, provident funds, gratuity funds, life insurance funds, general insurance, investable funds, providing the investor base for the bond market. Prioritize development of the secondary bond market over the stock market, which will give the exit to the primary bondholders. If there is no proper liquid secondary bond market, then there will be hard to establish good bond market. So I have noticed that the secondary bond market shows no liquidity in the market up until now. Therefore, if we can bring some changes in the bond features, such as the bond unit value like Taka 10, offering this to retail and institutional investors, which will make sure liquidity too. Bring eligible institutional investors to hold fixed income securities in this portfolio. Retail investors are having lack of financial literacy. The investor base in the bond market is very insignificant compared to the investor base in the equity capital. I have noticed that investors are reluctant to invest in the bond market as they prefer short and term deposits offered by financial institutions over long-term investment in bonds. Most investors in Bangladesh prefer capital gains over regular interest income, as was discussed also by the panelists. This is reflected by their preferences for stocks over bonds. But this preference from investors is not coming overnight. It developed due to absence of proper debt market and lack of proper financial knowledge too. Working on the creditworthiness of bond, strengthening the bond rating systems, and alike measures may have some effectiveness on the bond market. I find there are some gaps in maintaining proper corporate governance, lack of transparency, and inadequate market discipline to make a sound bond market. In the absence of a proper secondary market in fixed income securities, therefore, regulators of our capital market can emphasize to increase the liquidity of the secondary market for bond. The BSEC, Bangladesh Stock Exchange Commission, Bangladesh Securities Exchange Commission has made a regulation for capital market intermediaries to increase liquidity. But I believe there is more room to do such encourage mutual funds and corporates to play more role in the secondary bond market. BSEC may encourage asset managers to bring debt mutual funds, which can also play a role to support economic growth of the country. Also, there are more entities BSEC may think to bring the mainstream, such as equity crowdfunding, peer-to-peer crowdfunding to support SMEs, and SME board, as well as helping the unbanked people to give savings tools. Encouraging merchant bankers more in wealth management and planning products. Now I will have some concluding remarks. After the fruitful discussion in this program, plethora of constructive ideas and suggestions on Padma Bridge and opportunities for Bangladesh capital market have come forward from the discussion of the panelists, and we also heard the keynote presentation. It is really fascinating to see that all the experts have put their realistic viewpoints, which I synthesized so far, with regard to the inclusive growth in all the sectors of Bangladesh, based on the theme of today's program. I believe through these effective discussions and knowledge sharing initiatives, we will be able to assure sustainable growth by dint of consolidated efforts made by both public and private sectors of Bangladesh. Our unity, solidarity, and strong determination, as well as resilient policies and development strategies, will help create the Sonar Bangla, a propitious and prosperous dream made by the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. I would like to thank you all again. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know that following the footsteps of the great leader, our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Bangladesh is now led by our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, and she's working steadfastly to make this economy a tiger economy, and who is also working steadfastly to make a truly golden Bangladesh. Today, as we're talking about Padma Bridge, this bridge has turned from dream to reality. And there are many remarkable people behind this who has made this into reality. And today, we are extremely grateful and we're delighted to have one of the personality who has worked behind this project, this modern venture. This person has been offered many alluring offers from overseas, provided if he has relinquished all his duties from Padma Bridge. But this man did not do that. For the love of the country, for the love of the people, his esteemed and absolutely dedicated loyalty for Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, his love and dedication for the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, he got the courage to take this project forward. And today, from dream to reality, here we are talking about Padma Bridge. Please welcome on stage none other than Dr. Moshiur Rahman, the economic advisor, the economic affair advisor to the Prime Minister of the Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh.
The distinguished guests and the distinguished panelists and the gentlemen and ladies present, I thank the organizers for inviting me and also for the kind words that they have expressed. When something big happens, the civil servants hang around and they have small roles to play. I didn't do anything more than that. But I have narrated this story quite often from another perspective. When the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina went to Japan, she requested the Prime Minister of Japan for a couple of projects which included the Padma Bridge and also the Rupsha Bridge. The Rupsha Bridge is in Khulna, South Bangla. The Japanese Prime Minister committed to Rupsha Bridge, and on Padma, the response was that they would keep it under consideration. A couple of months later on, a Japanese embassy or JICA representative came to ERD. I was then ERD secretary, and asked us to convey our choice within the next 2 days. They said that they can take only one big project and not more than one, so we have to decide whether we would like to have Padma Bridge or some other, there are one or two other large projects. So I ran to the Prime Minister, who was in her office and going to the Parliament. She asked me to accompany her. I was getting into my car, but then she said, "You come with me, we'll talk while we are going to the Parliament." I had the privilege of accompanying her father. I was the private secretary, but this was the only occasion that I joined her in the drive to the Parliament. So in this 4 or 5 minutes, she asked me how long it would take for her to go to Tungipada if there is a Padma Bridge. I said it will take about 3 hours, 3.5 hours, and then she said that you also come from that area. How long it will take for you to go to your home? I said it will take another 1.5 hours or so from Gopalganj. And she said that, isn't it good that the capital goes to the people rather than the people coming to the capital? Now, I narrate this story to underscore another point, an important point. There was an economist who put forward a hypothesis or an explanation of behavior of good leadership. A leadership that is not subject to pressure of small interest group can serve the interest of the people. In this case, the people who benefit from the bridge are those in the southern part of Bengal, and they are not well organized. But compared with them, the other projects had supporters who were well organized groups, but the Prime Minister could override the pressure or the concern of those interest groups. So that is a quality of good leadership. And we should recognize that this is the kind of leadership which has taken us forward in our economic progress, in our social progress, and so on. Now, the investment creates opportunities for investment, but we do not always recognize that. I remember, I think it was in 2012, 2014, I was negotiating with a foreign investor who wanted to sever its connection with a partner here, which was in the public sector. I asked the public sector gentleman to prepare a financial statement of the liabilities and assets. Now he brought a statement which is full of liabilities, which included the machinery that the company had bought but could not put to use, the land that the company had bought that could not use. Now, anything on which the company had spent some money is a dead weight loss. He did not recognize that these assets could be put to some use. Now, the previous speakers who are much better conversant with the technicalities and the regulations of bond market, capital market, and so on, they have explained it quite well. I can't match that. But I guess what we need to recognize is the fact that the assets created have a value. And if that value could be transformed into a liquid sort of asset, that gives an opportunity to carry on further investment and further investment and further development, further economic growth. Now, linking the theme of discussion today with what the Prime Minister had foreseen, the economic prospects of South and Southwest Bengal. I guess after completion of the bridge, the next step to be taken is mobilizing finances for further investment. And these investments need to come from the private sector. The public sector has a role. The public sector has a role in providing certain infrastructure facilities, certain regulatory framework, and so on. But unless the private sector picks up the opportunity and makes investment, the economy does not grow. If the economy does not grow satisfactorily, there is a constraint on revenue growth, and there is also a constraint on how much the government can finance in terms of public infrastructure. So the growth of the economy to be engineered by the private sector is very crucial. And in order to achieve that, it is necessary that capital is made available to the investor. Those who save and those who can possess, those who own capital are not necessarily the best entrepreneurs, the best managers. So there has to be some intermediaries in order to mobilize the resources from those who have to those who can put it to some productive use. That is where the role of the intermediaries and the financial market comes on. Now, for the financial intermediaries to play their role, it is very important to underscore their fiduciary responsibility. The fiduciary responsibility in the narrow sense means if you handle someone else's money, if you are putting to use someone else's money, you owe them the responsibility that it is well done and their expectations are fulfilled reasonably and more often than not. I was reading a piece by economist Akerlof, who had got a Nobel Prize. Now he referred to some of these mischiefs that had occurred in the last few decades, and he mentioned specifically Enron. And he said that Enron was on a mission to make profit for its shareholders, and they didn't care about what happens to the rest of the economy and rest of the people. The problem here was severe lack of a sense of a fiduciary responsibility. But then he made it a little more complex by referring to Max Weber, who is a sociologist and wrote one of the earliest pieces on political sociology and sociology of economics. So what is this fiduciary responsibility in the broadest sense that Akerlof seemed to have implied? Now, Max Weber had written a piece on the vocation of politics, and there he makes the point that there is a difference in the sense of accountability that we normally hold and the sense of accountability to which the politicians are held. The politicians take responsibility for their actions. Others take responsibility for the particular consequences of the actions. Politicians take responsibility for the broader consequences of their actions. Here is a case of the Prime Minister taking or discharging that fiduciary responsibility in its deepest and its broadest sense. Now, how does a capital market help monetary policy? If you look at the economic performance or monetary policy in the last 2 decades or so, when the world went through some periods of recession, currently going through some rapid inflation, you will find that the bond market, the deep and broad bond market, is necessary for efficient monetary policy. In USA, the Federal Reserve System of the USA, they introduced something which they called stimulus, but that term comes from Japan when they started tried to inflate the economy but could not do it for a long time. Even now they are not able to generate the desired level of inflation. Now, the Fed started buying bonds and selling bonds. When the bonds are bought from the market, there is a contraction in the supply of money. When it is bought, there is an injection of reserve into the economic system, and when they sell, they withdraw that money. That is how they could control. The supply of money and the interest rate, and their idea was to keep the long to keep the long-term interest rate low so that investment is encouraged. Now, how low should inflation be? If you look at the newspapers these days and if you listen to discussions, there is always a kind of plaintive note that inflation is too high, inflation is too high. Now, can it be that inflation is too high or the inflation is too low? Japan had inflation which they considered too low, and they were trying to inflate. USA also thought the inflation was low and they tried to inflate and so on. So that ties up with the interest rate. What happened in US Federal Reserve System, I refer to US Federal Reserve because that is the most influential federal system in the world. They had followed a rule of 2% inflation. Now, this 2% inflation was introduced by one of their former Fed chairman who served for the longest period, 20 plus years, which is 5 terms. His basic conceptual structure was that inflation is optimal, which relieves the households and the business of the concern about the rate of inflation. And he said that 2% is about what is desirable. Now, in operation, it became a framework for inflationary framework, which basically said that inflation is not what you see every year or every month, but for a medium term, you aim at an inflation which has something to do with what they say, what economists say, optimal inflation and non-inflating unemployment or the natural rate of unemployment. Now in the USA, they assumed that 4% or maybe slightly lower unemployment is natural. If unemployment goes below that, they should get, if unemployment goes below that, then they need to inflate the economy and also raise the rate of unemployment. That is something accidental and that should be avoided. So they brought down interest rate to, they said, zero bound, which is if, interest rate minus inflation would be zero. European Central Bank pushed down inflation to negative rates. That is, if you save money and put it in the bank, you lose the value of the money. So they started inflating the economy by lowering the interest rate. But later on, by 2010, 2015, there were economists who questioned the judgment implicit in having such a low inflation. And they said inflation at about 4 or 5% is what should be optimal, and that would correspond with a market interest rate of 7 or 6%. So low inflation is a sign of recession. Too high inflation is something bad. And an optimal recession is something which keeps your interest or your return on money positive and at the same time does not drive the inflation too high. Our economists have not estimated what should be an optimal inflation for Bangladesh, but my guess is if USA considers 4 or 5% as optimal inflation, Bangladesh may have about 6-7% inflation. And over the medium term, which is about 3 years or 4 years, that would depend on the medium term that we define for ourselves. It averages out, so sometimes we might overshoot, sometimes we may undershoot. So that has to be offset, that has to be adjusted from year to year. And as long as we stay on the optimal rate of inflation, there should not be anything to worry about. Now, what is the optimal rate of inflation? That inflation which is caused by accidental factors and not by your policy. is the optimal rate of inflation. If you look at our inflation, it is virtually all imported because of the high energy price, high food price, also the shortage of fertilizer, etc. This inflation is all imported, and it is not very clear that inflation can be controlled simply by reducing expenditure, because if expenditure is reduced severely, then output also goes down. So the government has to make a balance between the inflation, which can be treated as optimal, and avoiding a recession or a downturn of the economy. And if you look at the management of the economy so far, it would appear that the government has very carefully steered this narrow path of a severe retrenchment or further accelerating inflation by domestic policy. Our discussion of the bond market indicated that there is enough resources to be mobilized. I would refer only to the crowdfunding. My idea of crowdfunding is that a large number of people contribute small amounts. If you look at the growth of microfinance institutions' loan portfolio, they started with some small capital, some small seed capital, but having lent the money at an appropriate interest rate, sometimes coercive, they have flourished. But this money mostly has gone into further expansion of microcredit. It has not gone into investment in industry, not in agriculture, maybe a little bit of low skill, low quality of farm investment. So there is a large opportunity, there is a very strong opportunity of mobilizing the crowd fund, which would link first the informal rural sector with the formal sector, and if the formal sector is expanded, that also expands the base of revenue collection of the government. So that is win-win-win-win situation that we should aim at. And I would also emphasize this broader, deeper fiduciary responsibility of those who are into the capital market. The primary responsibility is of the players in the market, and the regulator is there to tell them when they are crossing the red line and into a dangerous zone, which would not only harm them and the investors, but also the economy and the society as a whole. Now, to go back to the decision that the Prime Minister has taken to set up the Padma Bridge, if we pick up from that observation, that is better that the capital or the people who runs the government goes to the people, rather than people running back to those who run the government. After this opportunity has been created, what do we do in order to realize the opportunities which have been created by the Padma Bridge? We have to mobilize resources and see that the resources are invested in development enterprises in south and southwest zone. And infrastructure is necessary, infrastructure improvement is necessary, but in addition, you see that we have been depending, and still we are dependent on one port. There are three ports, there are three more ports, two are being made, and Mongla port is functioning, has been functioning for a fairly long time, but because of the low draft, it cannot function very efficiently, it cannot take a large number of ships. So it is necessary that we look at the geographical constraint of these ports and develop the ports so that they can carry on a lot more of goods for export and also handle more import. If there is enough resources in the country which can be mobilized, this will also need some matching foreign currency. So it also emphasizes the growth of export. And export has done pretty well, and it has many possibilities, and we ought to look at that. So the road and the railway are there. So these also would be. And finally, the geographical location of Bangladesh should be carefully noticed. It is the connection between the two largest and thriving economies of Asia, China and India. This provides a land connection between these two large markets, and Bangladesh can earn a lot from providing transport and transit services to these two major economies of Asia, and also the two likely major economies of the world. So we are in a very vantage position which can be materialized by creating the necessary infrastructure and the regulatory infrastructure. The regulatory infrastructure is in good shape, but along with the expansion of opportunities, their skill, their capacity to intervene, their capacity to take decisions in the right context, that also would become important. Reform and improvement is not a final destination. It is always expanding, and it is necessary that along with the expansion of opportunities, the capacity also improves, capacity also increases. There is no end to how much capacity we need and we can improve. We should look at that. So finally, I again thank the panelists and the discussions, and particularly Dr. Alam and Dr. Rubayatul Islam for their very thankful, very high quality contribution, and the organizers for picking up the point from where the Prime Minister had launched us all. So let us recognize the contribution that the Prime Minister leadership has given, and let us try to make our dreams come true. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangla.
Thank you to the wonderful speaker who has seen this Padma Bridge come from dream to reality. He has narrated the story, the prosperity, and the economic connections regarding it as well. Thank you so very much, sir. May I request on stage Mr. Nasiruddin Ahmed Chaudhry, the Chairman of Green Delta Capital Limited, Advisor and Founding Managing Director, Green Delta Insurance Company Limited. And I would also like to request on stage Ms. Farzana Chaudhry, MD and CEO, Green Delta Insurance Company Limited, Muhammad Rafiqul Islam, MD and CEO, Green Delta Capital Limited, to kindly hand over the token of appreciation to our chief guest of the event. May I kindly request our guest of honor, Professor Shibli Rubayatul Islam, Honorable Chairman, Bangladesh Security and Exchange Commission, to kindly grace the stage and accept this token of appreciation from us. Okay. Requesting on stage our guest of honor, Dr. Samsul Alam, Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Planning, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. May I now request our special guest, Mr. Sheikh Muhammad Salimullah, Secretary, Financial Institution Division, Ministry of Finance. Thank you so very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we are almost at the very end of the event, but before we bid farewell and welcome you all for the dinner, we still have one speaker left. I would now like to request Ms. Farzana Chaudhary, the Managing Director and the Chief Executive Officer of the Green Delta Insurance Company Limited, for the vote of thanks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I know everyone is hungry. We're a little late, running a little late, but the food will be served in 2-3 minutes. I will not take more than few minutes, so bear with me for some time. Today we all have gathered to attend the very first celebration event of the national milestone of the completion and opening of Padma Bridge and discuss the opportunities for Bangladesh capital market. We would like to thank our Honorable Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, for transforming our dream into reality. We believe this project will be the most significant infrastructure that will help with the notable financial growth, social upliftment of millions of people in the southwestern part of the country by triggering sustainable development goals with reflective progress. A plethora of insightful facts indicating a new horizon of hope and aspiration have emerged through the project, which will manifest remarkable GDP growth for both nationally and regionally. We had heard from our panel, our keynote speaker, and also from the panelists regarding the opportunities, where they have talked about not only the challenges but also highlighted few sectors, including infrastructure, power, healthcare, exporters, agro business, SDG, exchange trading funds, ETF, capital market, the bond market, different derivative products, commodity exchange, foreign investment, and market efficiency, where we have seen that will lead Bangladesh through a financial leap. We, Green Delta, would try our best to share the outcome and recommendations to all of you after this event, and also to our Prime Minister's office. I would like to express our utmost gratitude and thank to our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina once again for her indomitable spirit, into-speed mindset and courageous effort of turning the long-chased dream of Padma Bridge into a shining reality and opening a door full of possibilities and opportunities for our growth and prosperity as a nation. I would like to thank our honorable chief guest of today's event, Dr. Mushir Rahman, Economic Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, Government of People's Republic of Bangladesh, for gracing our event as a chief guest and also encouraging us. We would like to thank our honorable guest of honor, Dr. Shamsul Alam, Minister of State, Ministry of Planning, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, and Professor Shibli Rubayatul Islam, Chairman, Bangladesh Security Exchange Commission, BSc. I would like to also thank our special guest, Mr. Sheikh Mohammed Salimullah, Honorable Secretary, Financial Institutions, FID, Ministry of Finance, for his gracious presence and also delivering his speech. I would, last but not least, I would really like to thank Dr. Shamsuddin Ahmed, the Commissioner of Bangladesh Security Exchange Commission, because today the event was actually his brainchild, and he has given his thoughts and ideas and helped Green Delta Capital to make this event a great success. So we would like to really thank our Dr. Sheikh Shamsuddin Ahmed, Commissioner of Bangladesh Security Exchange Commission, once again for supporting us and also for his gracious presence. Last but not least, all the stakeholders from the government and the private sector, our esteemed all panelists and also moderator for having a great discussion session where all the opportunities and the recommendations came to make this Padma Bridge not only a reality but also to take Bangladesh into a developed nations by 2042. We also thank our friends from print and media and also all the guests today, and thank you very much. And we believe the consequence of this effective discussion and knowledge sharing initiatives, we will be able to assure sustainable growth by consolidated efforts made by both public and private sectors of Bangladesh. Thank you once again for your patient hearing, and I would like to invite all of you to please join us for dinner. Good evening once again.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this we have come to the very end of our event. Thank you so very much for your active participation. Your gracious presence has certainly benefited both the listeners and also the panelists. Thank you so very much. I hope we have actually gained a lot of resourceful information out of this panel discussion as well. Dinners will be served. I welcome all of you for dinners and enjoy the dinner. Thank you very much.